All right, guys, this is the last in the videos about the different organic compounds that I expect you to be familiar with. So today we're talking about compounds called amines and amides. Okay, very subtle difference between those two names, an N here and a D here. And these are compounds that contain nitrogen. Okay, so a lot of the compounds that we've talked about, all of the compounds we've talked about so far in organic chemistry have contained carbon and hydrogen. And then a lot of the examples we went through also contained oxygen. Today we're introducing one additional element. We've got nitrogen today. One sort of fun fact: amines are based on based around ammonia, NH3, which is a chemical that comes up all the time in science, and they are basic. So in yesterday's video, we talked about carboxylic acids, which are acidic, and it's kind of the opposite chemical of that is a basic chemical. So amines are basic. Okay, so we're going to launch right into it. I'm going to go through two examples of amines because they sometimes have kind of a weird thing going on. And then I'll go through an example of an amide, be nice and quick, and then we've covered all the organic compounds I expect of you, all the types of organic compounds. Okay, so starting with amines with one carbon chain. Okay, so for this, I'm going to look at my list of prefixes. I'm going to pick a number of carbons I want to work with. Let's say I want 4 carbons, so I'm going to use bute in my name. And because I'm drawing an amine, it's going to be butanamine. Okay, so that's how I would name that. Okay, and then the structure for butanamine, I know right off the bat, bute tells me I need 4 carbons. So I'm going to draw 4 carbons. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And then it's an amine, which means that it has an NH2 group on it. Okay, so that, I'm going to pick either carbon. I have a little more space on this one. So I'm going to put an NH2 on that carbon. Now, you might be like, well, how did you know which carbon to put it on? I used kind of an organic chemistry trick, which is that if there's no number given in the name to indicate where to put the special group or the functional group, then you can assume it's on the end. Okay, so that's a little organic chemistry shorthand that we sometimes use. So this, I could have called this butan 1 amine, okay, to be really clear that it goes here, but usually you'll see it written without the 1. Okay, the kind of the rules about it would say you don't have to include the 1, only include a number if it's somewhere else on the chain, not on the end. Okay, so this would be butanamine, almost complete. Last thing I need to do is fill up my bonding spots on carbon with hydrogens like we've been practicing. So making sure that every carbon is making 4 bonds. Like that, like that. And now this carbon, it's just making the 1 bond to nitrogen. And then you can see the nitrogen has 2 hydrogens on it. So nitrogen is an atom that makes 3 bonds in total. So this carbon right now, it's only making 2 bonds. I still need 2 more hydrogens to fill up those spots. Okay, skeletal structure for this. So I'm going to draw my carbon backbone with 4 carbons, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then on my last carbon, I'm going to add my NH2 group. Looks like that. Okay, there's a skeletal structure. Okay, now it is possible to have more than 1 carbon chain coming off of your nitrogen. Okay, you can have up to 3. I'm going to show you an example with 2 here. And I'm actually going to start by drawing the structure and then we'll get the name from that. So I'm going to start with my N in the middle. And then I'm going to keep it pretty simple here. I'm going to put 1 carbon on one side of the N, and I'm going to put 2 carbons on the other side. Okay? And then my nitrogen, it needs to make 3 bonds. So right now it's making 2 bonds to carbon. So I'm also going to add 1 more hydrogen to that nitrogen, like that. Okay? And then I'm going to fill up my bonding spots with hydrogen on those carbons. Okay, so we've seen this before where we have kind of two pieces to our molecule, or the carbon chain is kind of broken up into two pieces. The way it works here, the way we would name something like this is we pick the longer chain of carbons first. So on this side, I've got one carbon. On this side, I've got two carbons. I know it's an amine because of this nitrogen right here. So I'm just going to start by writing the name of an amine that has two carbons. So I go with the longer chain. Okay, so that would be F, remembering that two carbons means F, and amine. Okay, and then this piece, there's one carbon on this side piece here. So that would be a meth. Okay, and I'm going to name it like a branch, so methyl. But then I have to be clear that my carbon is bonded to a nitrogen, not somewhere else on the other carbon chain. The way I do that, instead of using a number, I use a capital N. Okay, so the N here tells me that my methyl piece is bonded to the nitrogen. So N-methyl ethanamide. Sorry, ethanamine. Okay? If I wanted a skeletal structure of that guy, I would probably start by drawing my nitrogen in the middle, and I know that that nitrogen is bonded to a hydrogen. And then I've got a stick coming off this side to show the methyl group, and I've got two carbons coming off this side to show the ethyl part of the chain, or the two carbon group. Okay? And then our very last type of organic compound. Okay, our very last class, amides. So these are pretty straightforward. This is sort of the characteristic amide group. And I'm not going to make things too tricky here having multiple carbon chains on the nitrogen. I'm always going to have my amides just have a nitrogen with two hydrogens bonded to it. Okay, which means that the amide group is going to be one of those groups that only happens at the end of a carbon chain. So I don't need to give it a number. Okay, so this one, I'm going to come up with a name. I think I'm trying to keep my molecules simple today, so I think I'm just going to use prop for 3 carbons. Okay, and then propanamide is how I would name an amide with 3 carbons. The structure of that, I need 1, 2, 3 carbons. And then one of the carbons on the end, I can pick either end. This time maybe I'll pick this one right here, is going to have a double bond to oxygen. And then it's also going to have one of these NH2 groups. Okay, and then just the carbons that don't have any weird stuff going on, I'm just going to make sure they're filled with hydrogens. And I want to double check this carbon right here is making 1, 2, 3, 4 bonds. So it's good. And my nitrogen, 1, 2, 3 bonds. Okay, so that works nicely. Skeletal structure for that. So I've got 1, 2, 3 carbons. This carbon right here is making a double bond to oxygen, and then it has an NH2 group coming off of it as well. Okay, so that's propanamide as a skeletal structure. Okay, very nice. So you're going to want to look at the Google Classroom for the other stuff I've posted today. There's an assignment. You've got a little over a week to complete it. But please take a look at that stuff. Leave any comments or questions in the Google Classroom, and enjoy your long weekend.